Okay. Good evening. This is the May 21st, 2019 meeting of the East Long Meadow Town Council. I will open the meeting now with a pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And during our moment of silence, we ask that you keep our first responders and our servicemen and women around the globe in your thoughts. Thank you. In accordance with Mass General Law, this meeting is being audio and videotaped, and if there is anyone in the audience taping or audioing this meeting, please identify yourselves. Seeing none, I guess we can move on. Okay, the third item on our agenda is public comments. Mr. Florence, has anyone registered for comments this evening? Okay. Number 4, council comments. Anyone on the council have comments? All right, orders of the day. Number 5, financial matters. The one item, the sole item on our agenda tonight under financial matters is the recommendation from the Financial Oversight Committee regarding FY20, regarding the FY20 operating budget. Before we begin, I just want to say again that we have been fortunate to have a financial oversight subcommittee of the council made up of Chris Saunier, the chair, Jim Broderick, councilors Kane and O'Connor. They've met 12 times for over 31 hours in the last 5 weeks or so, up and through about 3 o'clock this afternoon, getting ready for tonight's meeting. I can't understate the level of expertise and the scrutiny that these 4 folks have given to all of the documents that comprise what we would call the budget development. And as an ex officio member, I attended all but 2 of the meetings simply as a resource if questions needed to be answered. Only the 4 folks that I just mentioned were the voting members of the council. To also say that the 4 folks and myself are bleary-eyed from looking at numbers and literally breaking our backs to do the very best we can and deliver the best product possible, which is, in street terms, the biggest bang for our tax dollar in terms of what we can realistically offer for services balanced against a tax rate that is not overburdensome to the taxpayers in this town. So again, I want to credit Chris and Jim for their decades of experience to the committee and to the town through their past work. And we can't thank you enough for the unselfish time you've committed to this task, as well as our fellow councilors here. And that said, I'm going to now defer to Ms. Saunier and Mr. Broderick to make their final recommendations to the council. And just in terms of process, this is not a public hearing tonight. This is just a typical business meeting of the council, albeit a very important and significant one. This subcommittee will make its recommendations to the 7 members sitting up here. And according to the charter, it's the obligation of the council to deliberate in public amongst ourselves and determine how we are going, based on the information and the recommendation, how we are going to proceed in giving instructions to the manager and to the finance director to build the budget based on various cuts or changes to what the manager's proposed budget was. That will occur between tomorrow and next Tuesday. And on Tuesday evening, the council will officially adopt an FY20 budget and move a variety of about 12 different motions in order to appropriate the funds for the various accounts and revolving funds in order to be able to start the fiscal year on July 1, ready to go. So again, Chris and Jim, the floor is yours.
Kathy, do we have anything that we're supposed to be following along with?
I think she's going to give it in a minute.
I'm going to pass out our reports after I give you a summary. I too would like to acknowledge the committee, the expertise of Mr. Broderick, Mr. Kane, and Mr. O'Connor, and the wonderful insight that you produced, Mrs. Hill. From our first meeting on April 16th, our committee has been reviewing the draft town budget, which contained all department requests. We then reviewed the town manager's proposed budget dated April 29th, 2019. There was a 2.5-week delay in providing us with the detailed budget information that we requested, and that slowed our progress until May 4th. We held 12 meetings, and within severe time constraints, we have recommendations for you tonight to reduce the fiscal 2020 town budget and the tax rate. I can assure you that we've been as thorough as possible in our review of the town manager's proposed budget. As you are aware, a $63 million budget has a lot of moving parts. There are many embedded increases in the proposed F-2020 budget. I'm referring to such items as the wage and salary increases, the implementation of a 24/7 fire department, the creation of a civilian dispatch function, and $2,903,000 in debt service. To begin, we made some additions on the estimated receipt of motor vehicle excise. An amount of $20,000 was added, and $20,000 on Chapter 70 aid to education. As in the town manager's budget, we used an allowable levy amount of $44,673,218. I dislike reading numbers to people, but that's the way it is. By state law, the education budget is autonomous in how their appropriation is spent. We considered only their base budget and supplemental request. In fiscal 2018 and the current fiscal year, the following amounts have been spent by the town, and please note that no capital projects are included in the figures I will read. $1,628,000 on public safety, $837,432 on public health, $705,175 on public works, $2,282,345 on education. That's $5,452,951 that's embedded in the rate. All of those contribute to the tax rate increases going forward. Our committee has determined that for fiscal year 2020, East Longmeadow is experiencing a perfect storm when it comes to setting a conservative budget that meets the town's needs. Within the general government portion of the budget, the perfect storm is primarily caused by three factors: the increase in the minimum wage, the settlement of union contracts, the results of the Collins Center's job study, and accompanying wage scale. After the completion of the Collins Center job study, the wages granted in the current fiscal year amounted to $87,702, increasing the town's overhead for the years going forward. All of the three items mentioned, the increase in the minimum wage, the settlement of union contracts, and the increases as a result of the job study, will be costing an additional $229,853 to the amount to be raised by taxes in the coming year. There are requests for 13 new positions, an unprecedented amount, 9 full-time positions and 4 part-time positions. With benefits, these new positions, if granted, would account for a further increase of $780,941 in salaries alone. That does not include benefits. For instance, these are we've been reluctant to recommend any full-time positions. So our recommendations on the new positions are as follows, and they are contained in our report. Accounting requested a procurement manager. We recommended to defer that because the procurement is contained in the finance director's job description, and a contractual stipend of $5,500 is being paid. The request was reduced to part-time. However, our recommendation remains the same. In the collector's office, there was a request to take a part-time clerk and go to full-time clerk. We say that position, we recommend that position should also be deferred because the benefits were half again what the increase in salary would be. IT, Information Technology, requested a help desk administrator. We recommend to fund this position. There's been no new position in IT since 2003, and they have now absorbed the software responsibility for all departments. This position is needed to help implement the school's one-on-one program, and it goes hand in hand with the $300,000 for new Chromebooks for students. IT also recommended summer interns for a period of 8 weeks each. We recommend funding these for 8 weeks during the summer to allow for refurbishing of older equipment and to organize for better distribution to the schools and prepare for the start of school in September. The town clerk, clerk of the council, requested a part-time clerk. We recommend funding this position, and it's justified by the workload as both clerk and clerk to the town council. Police captain position. We recommend deferral on this as well. As one taxpayer stated at your public budget hearing, there are 5 sergeants, and this is the town of East Longmeadow, not a city. There are 3 new officers joining the force, plus 1 officer returning to duty. Those additional wages are to be absorbed into the budget. We feel it adds another administrative layer that at this time the town cannot afford. Fire department requested a deputy chief. The recommendation is to defer. We don't perceive that as a critical need, while the town is still paying for a ladder truck and a new ambulance and has just gone to the 24/7 fire protection with added personnel costs. The building commissioner has requested an administrative assistant. We recommend funding this for 6 months. The building commissioner brings in revenue in the form of permit fees from inspections and fines from code enforcement. This frees the inspector from office and phone work so he can be out in the field performing his duties. Education. Education recommended 3 teachers, 2 social and emotional teachers, and a technology teacher to help the other teachers. We recommend funding 1 social emotional teacher. 1 such teacher is on staff at this time with proven results. This will help minimize classroom disruptions and provide for one-on-one interface with students who may have certain issues that have to be addressed. So the total savings on our above recommendation on salary only is $379,121, and there would be a corresponding reduction as to benefits paid. Originally, departments were told to fund their salary line items according to the minimum wage increase and the settlement of union contracts and the Collins study. All other non-salary line items were to have a 0% increase, and generally, departments adhered to the 0% increase in non-salary items. The new emergency communication department dispatch is of particular concern. The proposed budget is $409,989. Last September, the council chose to create a new department with civilian staffing. The department consists of a director, 4 full-time dispatchers, and 3 part-time dispatchers, with another currently in training. The concept was to build a department that would attract another town to join ours and share the expenses. That did not work out in this fiscal year and is unlikely to happen in fiscal 2020. Overtures are being made to other communities. Meanwhile, the East Long Meadow taxpayers are paying for it. We researched other towns as to shift staffing. We researched what is called time on task. And judging by the call volume, a dispatcher spends approximately 55 minutes on the phone during an 8-hour shift. No town mentioned having a director of public safety communications. In the past, the police shift supervisor assisted dispatch if the need arose. We know that substantial savings can be had once the town council takes a hard look at the department's setup until we have a partner community. We are recommending a reduction of $76,960 plus any benefit to reduce the requested coverage of 280 hours per week to 200 hours per week. The work schedule can be adjusted accordingly. We suggest removing the other post-employment benefit line item of $100,000. We support this. It makes no sense to raise that on taxation. We support the finance director's intent to transfer $1 million into the OPEB trust fund before June 30th. We recommend the transfer of $1.1 million at the end of the fiscal year to comply with state guidelines. We are providing you with information contained within our report about the free cash account and the stabilization account. Under capital projects, we did add 2 capital projects. We recommend the amounts of $25,000 for the police station feasibility study and $26,000 for new voting machines to come out of the undesignated fund balance. These 2 requests had previously been eliminated from the town manager's budget. These one-time expenses are a reasonable use of those funds. The balances remaining in these accounts remain well within the Department of Revenue's guidelines for the town's savings account. Our recommendations on the capital projects are outlined in the report. A further recommendation is that the town council begin receiving quarterly reports throughout the fiscal year that lists appropriations to date. Such reports would help the council to consider the tax impact of the expenditures they are approving. The cumulative numbers would also help guide spending priorities. With the understanding that many variables are still at play, for example, state aid and the determination of final valuations, our recommendation amounts to a further reduction of the town manager's projected tax rate of 2207. If the town council adopts our recommendations, we project a tax rate of $21.67, an increase over the previous year of $1.12. We've been able to reduce the rate of 2207 by 40 cents. In closing, it should be noted that all members of this committee are stakeholders in East Long Meadow. We live here, we vote here, we pay taxes here, and we are motivated by a love for this community and a heartfelt commitment to recommend what's best for our town. We listened to the taxpayers that spoke at the council budget hearing on May 14th. We urge you to review this report with those factors in mind, and I'll leave you with this thought: it's all pro bono. Thank you. I want to give those to
Jim, are there enough copies for the audience if they'd like one? Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
You gonna say more?
I just wanted, and I'm sure they're noticing it now, it's in the format of the managers so that you can read that last column
Yeah.
and see the changes.
Just to reiterate what Chris just stated, what the format of the document that you are all looking at now is identical to the format that our manager and finance director used when they presented this to us on April 29th. The column to the furthest right explains the rationale for either approval of the line item or a change in the number or a deferment. Realizing that this is a lot of information to absorb and process on the fly, if you will, particularly the audience. Many of our department heads are familiar with this budget and have spent as well, and I should note that for the public's benefit, the development of a budget from the department level to the manager's level and then to us is not without lots of hours of work. So we're indebted as well to our department heads for the time they've devoted to portraying a realistic look at their operation expenses and their recommendations.
Did you want us to walk through it?
It would be helpful, I think. Three of us have seen it ad nauseum,
Sure.
and I mean that lovingly, but to bring the full council up to speed might be the best if you want to review it.
After the cover page, there's just page 1, which is really the general fund sources, just compares the 429 budget sources to the financial oversight subcommittee's recommendations, and pretty much they match up. The only two changes are we recommended adjusting state aid by $20,000. The House and the Senate both adjusted upward to the Chapter 70 by $20,000. It seemed like a reasonable thing to do. And based on prior year's history, we had adjusted the new growth assumption by 20% to go for, or 20,000 to go from 0.5% increase to 1.25. So fairly minimal changes, but both of them in the local receipts category, non-tax revenue category. For information, we did look at meals tax and thought about trying to raise that, but because it would have been paid by residents and non-residents. But unfortunately, the meals tax is, the ceiling is legislated, so we couldn't do anything about that. So the sources are 63, 536, 943, 40,000 more. The next set of pages are really the department line items and the expense line items. The 429 budget is juxtaposed to the financial oversight budget recommendations, and where there's no differences, there's no amounts, and there's no comment. The first difference is in 135 town accountant, and these you have heard Mrs. Saulnier kind of give you an overview of these changes, but here you'll see them in the numbers. So the town accountant, the recommendation was to reduce that budget by $35,228.92 and defer the hiring of a procurement part-time person. And then in the collector treasurer area was to defer the change from a part-timer to a full-timer, so that was reduced by $17,865.51. The information technology, we did not change the budget because we did determine from our point of view, our judgment, that it was a necessary position for the town. The town clerk and council and the town clerk, we did defer the start of the part-timer for 6 months. So there's a slight decrease in the salary budget of $88,3828. And if you move on to page 3, you can see that the general government changes were 61,932, 71, so that was for the general government. Moving on to public safety, you'll see now the numbers translated in from what Mrs. Saulnier described. The police the full-time captain, which was in for 6 months, that we recommend to be deferred. So we were reducing the budget by 46,890.36. The fire, we were recommending that the 3 months with a full-time deputy chief be deferred. So we were reducing that budget by 23,750. These are all salaries. The benefits that went along with them are all in the benefits area, health insurance and payroll tax. The building department, we were deferring the addition of a full-timer for 6 months. So it was a reduction of 21,898.43. Again, as Mrs. Saulnier said, that department actually generates revenues that more than support the expenses, but they do go indirectly into the general fund, and they don't directly support the operating budget. In the dispatch, again, this was the source of a lot of discussion and a lot of calculations, and I appreciate the experience that committee members had in this area. At the end of the day, it just seemed like a lot of expense during the time frame that we have not found a partner community. So we voted to reduce that amount by the 76,960.
I would add that from our calculations, we actually came up with a reduction of over $100,000, but we wanted to justify our number, so we brought it down to the 76,690.
No other changes on page 3. So public safety, the reduction was 169,498. Maybe turning to page 4, there were no changes in the 429 budget presented by the town manager in Public Works. And in education, the salaries were reduced by 133,680, which represented the reduction for the funding of one full-time social emotional teacher and the full-time instructional technology specialist. Also deferred, and so reducing the non-salary education budget was 50,000 requested to increase the level of curriculum supplies. So total reduction there was 183,680. The school committee had asked for a substantial increase in stipends. We recommend reducing the increase to a 25% increase versus the 160% that was proposed by the school committee. So that's $9,500. So the total reduction or adjustment to the 429 proposed budget is $193,180 in the education area. No other changes on page 4. On page 5, you'll see the reflection of reductions of positions that were in the budget. This is the health insurance and the payroll taxes that represent the benefit load. This is where they would have been budgeted in, so this is where we're adjusting them out. So that's the 5294 from payroll taxes and 109,759 from the health insurance budget. So insurance reduced to 115,000. No change in the debt service. So the general fund budget, what the committee's recommending is a level of $59,922,617.35. Overall, a reduction of $539,665. Near the bottom of the page is a capital project. We get the specifics of those capital projects, but we are recommending a reduction of $112,657 And again, as Mrs. Solomon pointed out, we recommended not trying to use the operating budget to fund the OPEB, but do the calculation and take out what's needed, as the town manager and the director of finance have been doing in prior years, and just make the whole funding source come from free cash. And that takes some pressure off the operating budget. So other financing uses, the adjustments were $212,657. So total changes that we would recommend in reductions to the general fund uses is $752,322 for $62,103,423. And that is the uses line by line. And the small increase in the local receipts. So, and then the general fund sources, their uses, they're just recapped here. So it's the $539,665 overall. And then the capital projects and other uses. So this is really just a summary getting us to the 752 reduction in uses and total changes of 792, which includes the increase, the small increase in the non-tax revenue. Page 8 is, we didn't do the bar chart. I didn't think I could figure out how to do it, so I stayed away from it. But mill rate calculation and projection, the FY19 calculation was a evaluation of $1,994,987,436 on a levy of $40,996,992. So the FY19 mill rate was $20.55. Taking the 429 budget and using the same valuation, not allowing for any growth in valuation, which of course would have the impact of lowering the mill rate. The 429 budget would result in a 22.07 mill rate. The changes, and basically by adding the $792,000 in adjustments downward as a result of our recommendations, that would project, as Mrs. Saulnier said, a mill rate of 21.67, or a reduction of 40 cents. The reserve balance, and it probably gets to when we talk about, the uses of the capital, but that is just to show you where we kind of are at the moment. And I think that the town is in pretty good shape for reserves, and I commend all of you as the financial stewards of the town. The balance in the stabilization at this time is $2,735,734, and our certified free cash is $2,738,000 for a total we might call reserves and unrestricted, meaning we can use it for almost anything, is $5,473,734. If you put that against the proposed uses, or what I would call the operating expense budget of the town, that would, of $62,855,746, that would that would constitute 8.7%. Back in my old days with the Appropriations Committee, we would be very, very happy to be at that level, and the guideline that we had used to run in was the 5 to 10%. I understand from Sarah that that's still apropos. So we're in good shape at 8.7. The next line is just anticipating if you do go ahead and do the transfer to the OPEB trust fund of $1.1 million, that would reduce the reserves to $4,373,734, still 7% healthy. We have two recommendations for use of free cash, the feasibility study for the police station and new voting machines. After much discussion about the voting machines, it was thought that it might be a better thing to get them in sooner than later, make sure they're all working well before we have to face the test of presidential elections and primaries and making sure everything runs smoothly. But in any event, that is $26,000, so we would be recommending a further use of the free cash of $51,000, still leaving 6.9% reserves. And understand from the Director of Finance that our financial advisors also look at our OPEB trust fund as part of reserves of the town. And we have a balance now of $5.7 million in there, so if you, and I would look at that as a restricted reserve, meaning you can only use it for one thing, but it's nice to know that, outside analysts will take that into account when looking at the financial stability of the town. You add those together, it's $10,090,000 or 16.1%. So just a little recap with where it stands, since you'll at some point have to be making some determinations for using that. And I'll defer to Mrs. Saulnier to walk through the capital.
Capital projects recommendations follows again the town manager's budget. We went along with the majority of her recommendations. There had been a few changes that she had made on her 429 budget, which we agreed with. Under health, the Allen Street landfill closure remained the same. The payment of $214,787 on the ladder truck remained the same. The ambulance principal and interest, the lease payments remain the same, $91,947. Cruiser replacement at $82,000. The school, the high school, the asbestos removal and carpet replacement of the athletic offices at $24,162. Information technology at $70,122. The Chromebook devices was a negotiated portion that our town manager did with the school department, and reasonably so we could take off some bonding for this year and defer it. For Public Works, the tractor at $27,150, and as you can see, there were several requests through information technology for new devices, but it was held at $30,000. Phone upgrades, which are needed, at $38,107. The Bobcat that Public Works needs for $46,000. Annual sidewalk construction, at the recommendation of the town manager, we did reduce that by $25,000 to $50,000. And we are deferring the purchase of the town hall trailer mount generator. It was $87,657, and we didn't feel there was immediate necessity for that to go forward. We prioritized, again, if this amount was changed, the roadway improvement was originally $600,000. $100,000 was in that column, and it was moved by the town manager to $1.2 million, but for bonding. And as a result of the payment condition index across town and the study done by DPW, I feel that's a reasonable, certainly a very visible improvement to the town with the roads in the condition they're in. And also for bonding would be Maple Shade School door replacements at $50,000. The enterprise funds are strictly within, they're paid for by user fees, and therefore they remain the same. That was inflow and infiltration for $100,000, sewer and drain camera replacement at $130,000, and a portion of a mini excavator that they're also sharing with the water department, so they're sharing the expense of it. So sewer's paying $17,892. Water enterprise remained the same at $835,358 for the Maple Street interconnections upgrade. And Public Works, DPE is recommending and probably insisting that we paint that water tank, and that's at a cost of $1.3 million, so those numbers stay the same. And you'll see the balance of the excavator at $53,675. For stormwater enterprise, the request for a truck for the foreman and for him to carry equipment and so forth in his duties, $45,000. We're anticipating the truck will not be purchased till October because the first billing for that stormwater enterprise fund will happen in July. So we have his assurance that he might order the truck, but it will not, until some monies come in, not be spent. The projects we recommend to be funded from other sources are the Pine Knoll Upper Lot paving, which was $55,000. Initially, we thought of bonding. However, we recommend that you use casino mitigation money. It seems an apt use for that paving because it's in pretty bad shape. And the concern is that if there would be a liability to the town should anybody fall or children with disabilities would get hurt. The police, the cruiser replacement, this adds a truck, which would help them carry equipment, particularly barriers, cones. It's an off-road truck. It can also be used as a trailer hitch so that it can be used for other equipment. So we recommended that $45,000 be spent with casino mitigation money as well. The following two items come from free cash. The police station feasibility study we feel is important. It's a 45-year-old building. Some of the facilities in there, particularly holding cells and so forth, are not necessarily up to code and require attention. So it would, if we have the feasibility study, it might facilitate getting the grant from the state. No promises, but new voting machines at $26,000. Again, as Mr. Broderick said, we feel this is done better early than later. It'll time to work out the kinks, and the other ones have been breaking down on occasion, and these will afford us better security, encrypted security. The LifePack defibrillator will come out of the special ambulance account, and the vehicle replacements for building and IT will be repurposed police vehicles. And we are at the end of our recommendations, and the council has a lot to digest.
So again, that is a lot to absorb and take in. Time is not our best friend, unfortunately, but this is the part within our agenda where the council can ask questions of the Oversight Committee, and we can deliberate, and before we adjourn tonight, we do have to give instructions to Denise and to Sarah to build the final document for us. So, through the chair.
Through the chair, I've just got one question. First of all, thank you for doing this. I remember back in the selectmen days when we did the budget, and God bless you. So anyways, I'll just say that. That'll sum it all up. But anyways, the Collins Center with their increase, their salary recommendations, do you know offhand how much that, the dollar figure that is in the budget as far as what they suggested for increases?
Oh, the dollar amount?
Yeah.
I believe I gave it to you.
76?
Yeah.
76?
I think it was 76,000.
Okay.
I thought it was 87.
87,702 for some reason.
That was the
Yeah,
cost
that
in
sounds
this
familiar.
fiscal year.
Any change?
Okay.
This coming year.
No, they were-
Between the
The
minimum
number?
wage,
They
not
gave
just the
round
Well,
Collins.
I was just wondering
I
about.
don't have that with me.
Yeah, I was just wondering about Collins Center because I was thinking if that could have been phased in, but it's not a huge dollar amount, but.
Yeah, we did ask about it. I do have the number. I did not bring
That's okay.
the paperwork with me.
And it
But there's
was-
step increases in there also, not just the wage scale, but fitting people in.
Okay.
If they've been put into a new grade, they get a step.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure about the 2%, but they also get a 2%. So it was a substantial cost.
So there were also some adjustments of people that were in the wrong grade altogether. So they had big jumps. And once the study was done because it had been bargained in the TEU union contract. So they were a big part of the whole process. You know, we were checking with them all the way through. We needed to. Once they were aware of those increases or decreases or redlined or whatever, you really couldn't then say, yeah, you deserve a raise, but we're going to wait till next year.
Right. Joe?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Thank you, guys, for your hard work and for the council members as well. Was there any discussion with the police chief to possibly look at taking one of the sergeant positions in trade for the captain's position?
There was not.
Because
I don't want to speak for him, but
Well, yeah, the reason why I'm asking that, I would assume he would promote from within and not necessarily have to backfill sergeant. I checked with a number of different sources. There is a valid reason why he's requesting that. There's a significant reason why he's requesting that. So it doesn't matter that we're not the size of Springfield. There's 26 officers.
that.
Yeah, that's not relevant to me. There's a need there for that layer. So I'm not sure if he's amenable to trading that position or if it can be because those are union positions. So I don't really know the rules there or.
My recollection is, in conversation with him, he said there could be reluctance on a sergeant's part to leave the bargaining unit to move into a position that's negotiated independently.
it would be not a union position
Right.
and not a civil service
And it's outside of
position.
civil service,
So-
and that's the big draw for our sergeants.
So he did have that concern, even if we were filling it from within. But, I mean, even if we tried having the sergeants apply for the position, he felt that they might not want to.
So
But
is that
but making one of the sergeants, reducing sergeants by one was not something that we had talked
Okay.
about.
And then the next question is, I understand that's not a union position, but would that position have a contract?
Yes.
Employment contract?
Yes.
Okay.
So they would
So,
have the protection.
Again,
there.
maybe this is for FY '21, but, we can have a little more time to plan, but I'm just curious if that was discussed. My next question is, in terms of the school department, under the second position for social and emotional teacher, what would the impact be to the mill rate if we approve that position?
But first, let me state that in talking with the school officials, I believe they're willing to accept funding for one position, and with the arrival of state aid, because they can move things within their budget, they have at least 7 known retirements this year, possibly, potentially 9, that they will have monies and they may be able to bring in that second social emotional teacher.
Under their existing footprint?
Under their existing funding, yes. Am I correct, Rich?
Yes, we're going to do the best we can to find that money. No guarantees, though. We'll do our best.
It was about 95,000 all in, and Sarah gave us a rough rule of thumb. Every penny is, 20,000 is a penny.
So it's
Could be another nickel or something.
And again, we've had lots of discussions with it. I guess I'm biased because I hear about it every night when my wife gets home from work. And it's a problem that the schools have to deal with
I
on an
understand.
increasing basis as each year goes by. And you're spending $1 sending somebody somewhere else, you could spend 80 cents and provide better services in our own community. So it makes business sense to find a way to fund it. I appreciate you guys being flexible. So no, that answers my question there. And then I had, again, I know I seem to be the only one stuck on this, and I apologize, guys, but I'm back to the capital appropriating $75,000 for the Allen Street landfill closure. My concern is we're doing studies for something we cannot possibly fund next year. And I'm just stuck on that. We do not have, we're talking about doing a feasibility for the landfill closure study, and then we're going to get a study that says, yes, you need to close it, and it's going to be a massive amount of money. So I just don't know how many, and we have others that need to be addressed in this town, and so do other communities. My point is that we're cutting some significant things from the current budget. We're going to appropriate $1.5 million next year, possibly that or more. I don't know. That's a number that got tossed out. So that's just, I guess I seem to be somewhat fixated on that one, but I just don't know where we're going with that next year.
So the study is for 75, and if we do it similar to what we did for the Summers landfill, we appropriate, like we do for sidewalks, like we do for the roads, $75,000 a year. They do that amount of work the next year, but they need that study, that outline of what they need to accomplish. It will be a huge project, but not to be all done in 1 year. Kathy and I also spoke with the governor's representatives about possibly getting some funding through the DEP. Again, we can't get that if we don't have a study done.
Right. And the other piece that I remember Mr. Fenney speaking about is if, right now, if it were up to the DEP, they would mandate the closure and the proper capping of it. So the best way to avoid getting, the hammer dropped on you
Right.
is to make a good faith attempt. If a town can show that there's a good faith attempt to understand the picture or the problem and what needs to be done, then the DEP will, be a kinder and gentler overlord. And I understand what you're
I get
saying, but
But as my distinguished colleague said last meeting, Don, was the state is putting all these unfunded mandates on us. We can't support all these initiatives. And I know there are other communities that are waiting, and they're waiting because eventually someone's going to have to help some of these other communities that maybe don't have, the resources either. But that's not currently polluting anything. It's not a current.
We don't know that
Well,
until we do the study.
True, but, if
Because
it
there is a
was,
brook.
then they would have certainly mandated something to us at this point.
it is, that
since that is their
landfill
job.
does border
It-
a
it does
water
brook-
source.
There
right.
is a brook or a stream there, and that's one of their concerns.
All right, again, I'll defer to smarter people, but I'm just stuck on it. So
Okay.
I will get over it in due course.
Okay. Anyone else from the council? No other questions? I would entertain a motion then to accept the recommendations as brought forward to us from the Oversight Committee, Financial Oversight Committee, so that we can have Sarah and Denise put their heads and sharp pencils together and move forward for next Tuesday.
So moved.
All those in favor of adopting the recommendations of the Financial Oversight Committee as stated this evening, with subsequent instructions to the manager and finance director, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Ladies, we appreciate the work that you now need to do to bring back to us a budget that we can go motion by motion and fund appropriately. On the next item, put your glasses on, Ms. Hill, new business, summary action items for the next meeting. I believe I just stated those, so appreciate that. And seeing nothing else, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. We are adjourned at 7:56 PM. Thank you. Good evening. We will be back in session on Tuesday, May 28th, to adopt the fiscal 2020 budget. Thank you.